You may have noticed that many men and women religious wear rosaries on the side of their habits. This practice dates back to the Middle Ages, when it was common for a person to carry a sword on their belt for protection, as a sign of status, and even for fashion. Religious, instead, would wear a rosary in place of a sword, as a sign that prayer was to be their weapon against evil and their defense in times of danger. If you look closely, you might see that the rosary worn by many Discalced Carmelite friars and nuns is a little different than other rosaries. The main difference is that these rosaries often have 6 decades, or groups of 10 beads, instead of 5 like a normal rosary. Why this extra decade? The Six-Decade Rosary dates back to the 14th century and is attributed to Saint Bridget of Sweden. This rosary has 63 Hail Marys, 10 in each of the 6 decades, and 3 at the end, representing the tradition that the Blessed Virgin Mary lived 63 years on earth, according to a revelation given to Saint Bridget. Interestingly, the original Dominican rosary did not have these 3 beads at the beginning. You know, the 3 where we typically pray for an increase in the virtues of faith, hope, and charity. The Dominican rosary instead had 15 decades of 10 beads each, meaning that a complete rosary had a total of 150 Hail Marys, representing each of the 150 Psalms. The 3 extra beads that we find on nearly every rosary today seem to be an influence from the Byrgentine rosary, where the 3 beads were added to the 60 to represent the 63 years. Besides having 63 Hail Marys, the 6th decade of the Byrgentine rosary means that it has 7 Our Fathers, 1 before each of the 6 decades, and 1 before the set of 3 Hail Marys. These 7 Our Fathers represent the 7 joys and 7 sorrows of Mary. Praying the 6th-decade rosary is very similar to praying the normal 5-decade rosary. Traditionally, in the Byrgentine rosary, the Apostles' Creed was recited at the end of each decade in place of the Glory Be. Also, originally there were no specific mysteries connected with the Byrgentine rosary. Instead, it was meant to be a meditation on the whole life of the Virgin Mary. Today, Carmelites often pray the 6th-decade rosary in the same way as the 5, just adding a 6th decade along with a corresponding mystery. For example, in the sorrowful mysteries, you can meditate on the body of Jesus being placed in Mary's arms as the 6th mystery. In the joyful mysteries, the Immaculate Conception can be the first of the 6 mysteries. For the glorious, the patronage of Mary can be the 6th mystery. And for the luminous mysteries, the hidden life of Jesus can be the first mystery. Or, my personal favorite, Jesus giving his mother to the beloved disciple as the 6th mystery. However, if you don't find meditation on the mysteries helpful for your prayer, you can instead meditate on any part of the life of our Heavenly Mother. Some people like to offer the 6th decade to pray for the holy souls in purgatory, or to meditate on the Immaculate Conception. Special indulgences were attached to the 6th-decade rosary by Pope Leo X, Clement XI, and Benedict XIV in the 16th and 18th centuries. In much of Spain and southern France, during the time when the 6th-decade rosary was becoming more popular, it was actually more well known than the 5-decade one, especially among the lower class. In 1858, Bernadette was praying the 6th-decade rosary when Our Lady appeared to her at Lourdes. In fact, if you look closely at some of the pictures of Saint Bernadette, you'll notice that she's holding a 6th-decade rosary. It is also well documented that when a statue was being made for the Lourdes Grotto in 1871, Saint Bernadette was insistent on the fact that Our Lady should be holding a 6th-decade rosary, which she said was the rosary of the Immaculate Conception. So why do the Discalced Carmelites wear this 6th-decade rosary? A lot of websites and videos claim that St. Teresa of Avila stayed at a Byrgentine convent during her travels throughout Spain as she was making her Carmelite foundations, and it was then that she was introduced to the 6th-decade rosary. However, the first Byrgentine convent wasn't even founded in Spain until 1628. It seems that the connection between the Discalced Carmelites and the 6th-decade rosary came about a little later than St. Teresa's time, likely in connection to the doctrine of the Immaculate Conception. During the 17th century, there was a heated debate concerning the Immaculate Conception. The Carmelites were so zealous in promoting the teaching in Spain that many of them took an oath saying that they were even willing to die to defend this grace of Our Lady. In fact, just as St. Teresa is Teresa of Jesus, or St. Therese is Therese of the Child Jesus and of the Holy Face, for a time in Spain, every Discalced Carmelite friar took the religious title of the Immaculate Conception to promote its devotion. Thus, if the Six-Decade Rosary was seen as the rosary specifically devoted to the Immaculate Conception, it would make sense that the Discalced Carmelite friars would adopt it as their own. In fact, the connection between the Six-Decade Rosary and the Carmelite order was so strong that in Spain it even began to be known as the Carmelite Rosary instead of the Byrgentine Rosary. The Carmelites often replaced the crucifix at the beginning of the Rosary with a medal of Our Lady of Mount Carmel, since they wore a crucifix under their scapular near their heart. Even if the adoption of the Six-Decade Rosary was not directly connected to St. Teresa of Avila, it is a worthy tradition that no doubt would have pleased her. St. Teresa had a great devotion to the Rosary. She writes in her autobiography that as a child, I sought out solitude to pray my devotions, and they were many, especially the Rosary, to which my mother was very devoted, and she made us devoted to it too. This devotion would continue throughout her entire life, for she would never go to sleep without praying the Rosary. She even recounts an episode in the book of her life that while praying the Rosary, she was brought into spiritual rapture. Prayerfully meditating on the Rosary can draw one into the heights of contemplation. However, St. Teresa also insisted that true prayer is not inattentive recitation, but a loving relationship with the God who loves us. She writes in The Way of Perfection that when praying, we should consider whom we are going to speak with and who we are, so that we know how to speak with him. Our prayers should not be mindless, but rather draw us into a deeper love of Jesus through the intercession of Mary. Personally, I find that praying the Six-Decade Rosary is helpful for me in this regard. I appreciate walking bead by bead through the life of the Blessed Virgin Mary, from her Immaculate Conception into her Assumption into heaven. To be a Carmelite means to imitate the life of the Blessed Virgin Mary, to be clothed in her scapular, to imitate her virtues, and especially to share in her deep intimacy with Jesus. Whether you choose to pray 5 decades or 6, the Holy Rosary is an excellent way to grow closer to Jesus through devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Our Lady of the Rosary, ora pro nobis.